talk about GST, its good factors and also its negative impacts, positive things, and how we implement all those things. So yesterday, I think many students, many scholars, many practitioners and academicians have participated in this program. I came to know through my research scholars and also other faculty members and also students. So I'm extremely happy. Good morning to all, and especially G. Narayan Swami ji, who is expert in this particular aspects, and our Professor Mahadevappa is also expert on this commercial tax and also all other economics and also as well as commercial aspects of these particular things. We know that the goods and services tax came into effect from 1st July 2017 through the implementation of the 101st amendment of the Constitution of India by the Indian government. The GST replaced existing multiple taxes levied by the central and state governments. The tax rates, rules and regulations are governed by the GST Council, which consists of finance ministers of the central government and all state governments. GST is an indirect tax levied on the supply of goods and services. It is a comprehensive, multi-stage, destination-based tax. It is comprehensive as it has subsumed almost all the indirect taxes except a few state taxes. It is multi-staged as it is imposed at every stage in the production process, but it is meant to be refunded to all parties in the various stages of production other than the final consumer. It is a destination-based tax as it is collected from point of view of consumption. Under GST, goods and services are divided into 5 different tax slabs for collection of tax: 0% for some of the items, 5% for some of the items, 12% for some of the items, 18% and 28% respectively. However, petroleum products, alcoholic drinks and electricity are not taxed under GST, and they are taxed separately by the respective state governments. We are filing GST returns, and University Industry Interaction Center acts as a catalyst for university industry interaction. It partners with industry to achieve excellence in higher education and to enhance the competitiveness of Indian industry by providing interaction opportunities. I'm happy that I'm with you, and it is a really very relevant program which is being organized by our University Industry Interaction Center. And as I know, many of the departments have established their own contacts and MOUs with respective industries, and especially commerce and management departments. They have taken initiative to get in contact with industries relevant. And I'm extremely happy that many students are participating during this time and during this COVID pandemic situation, and people are not able to move to place and also to get hands-on experience, in-person experience. Definitely this kind of online programs and this kind of webinars are going to help in a great way to reach out to the needy people. It may be a matter of consultation or getting to know one another and having a kind of interactions, whatnot. So in many ways, these online programs, online digital mode is helping us. And through this way we are meeting, and definitely I think this is going to yield very good results towards the targeted aspects. And happy that Sri Narayan Swami ji is participating very actively. I came to know is from our own university. And I don't know, Narayan Swami sir, maybe you may be from Kolar district. Chamarajanagar, okay, because many people are from Narayan Swami by name. They are from Kolar district. I am from Kolar district. So
nice to hear that.
Yes, sir.
We are all bordering Tamil Nadu. Probably that's why wherever I go, they think that I am a Tamilian.
Yes, no, sir. It's not Tamilian, but Narayan Swami is Amar Narayan Swami. You know that Kaivara.
No, what I am saying, outside the country, they think Narayan Swami is from Tamil Nadu. That is the thing.
Yeah. In fact, all southern region people, they are called as Madrasis in other places. Somehow that's how Tamilians have stamped their identity. So happy that, sir. This is a really good. We are gearing up ourselves We are preparing ourselves to meet the new challenges during this time. I think many of our students are not able to understand the main purpose of it, and also nitty-gritties and the procedures, policies, and how it should be understood, and how these people are, industry people have received it, and general public, public institutions, private institutions, and other things. I think from all these aspects, this is a wonderful thing which has been organized. So maybe from international perspective, as I learnt from our Madhavappa sir, that you have worked in other places other than India. So maybe from their perspective, and from our own perspective, and also looking at from all people's perspective, it's going to help us. I'm extremely happy that please go ahead, and happy that I have interacted with you. I'm not an expert in this particular field, though I have worked with people intensively. I lived in villages. I lived with many tribal population for months together, and I've learned a lot from them. And also I worked closely with national and international agencies. I was there with Danida for 10 years as a senior advisor, suggesting on social aspects of involving people in all the stages of the project planning, implementation, later operation, maintenance, and management aspects. So this is the one aspect which I need to learn. So definitely I learn from you all people. So kindly go ahead. Once again, I congratulate our University Industry Interaction Center for having organized this kind of a program. So I wish all the success to the program, and I request all our research scholars, faculty members, and all the participants to take part actively in the deliberations of this webinar. Thank you very much. Wish you one and all a good day. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Our registrar is very supportive and cooperative for these type of programs. He's a good academician and also able administrator. I thank on behalf of the University of Mysore to our registrar. I request our chief guest resource person, Sri Narayan Swamiji, to take over the session.
Good morning to all of you. Respected registrar of the Mysore University, Professor B. Shivappa, then director of the Mysore University Industry Interaction Center, Professor Mahadevappa, all faculty members, and the students. I first thank all of you, particularly the university, for giving me this opportunity to interact with the people who are the budding experts in this particular area. So it's a great honor for me to interact with all of you. So having come from the university, particularly that university, I know how the students will be interested in learning. Mysore University has got international fame, and it's a great honor for me. As far as the topic is concerned, it's a very huge one. What I am trying to do and what I have done yesterday is to sensitize the participants about various aspects of GST. In fact, we teach about 4 to 6 months this aspect for our officers in our academy. But I am trying to make it very concise, because if he knows there is something called IDAR, so they can always study and learn, because we are in the era of information explosion. But only thing is we should know where to look for, what to look for. This is what I am trying to sensitize. So I really appreciate the registrar for his kind words. In fact, because you mentioned about my name, I went outside and I've been called by different people by different name. Like for Gujaratis, I am Swaminarayan. For others, I am Sammi. And for Tamilians, I am Narayan Swami. I belong to Gundlupet Taluk in Karnataka. In fact, my name comes from Gopal Swami Hills. So that's why Narayan Swami it is. Thank you, Professor, for sparing your time. If you permit, I will start my session. Thank you. Meta?
I'll be here for another 15 minutes, sir.
Please, Professor.
Later, I have another planned program.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Till 10:30, I'm here, sir. Yes.
How to take this?
Sir, I have co-hosted you, sir. You can share your screen, sir. Directly.
I'm just sharing it.
Sir.
Meta? Why it is not coming? Oh, I have to open it.
PPT, first you open the
Yeah,
PPT.
I am doing that. I am doing that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very excellent.
I am a tech expert, so no problem.
Sir.
My daughter. Maybe I have to pull this out here. It's okay. I welcome all of you back to the GST session. This is the topic or the theme what we have chosen, and we have spoken off of it yesterday. I'll be continuing it. Just to recapitulate, yesterday we have discussed about the historical international perspectives, good old taxes, constitutional framework, legal framework, GST council, GST model and IGST model, administrative setup, seamless flow of ITC, tax rates and its effect on prices, constitutional provisions and concepts of taxable supply, assessment, destination principle. All these aspects have been discussed yesterday. Today, I am trying to touch upon various aspects on registration, MSME sector, e-com operators, GST refunds, advance ruling, GST practitioners, because it may be of helpful to you, and IT framework, then how the taxes are apportioned or settlement of funds are done, and efforts to curb the inflation as well as tax evasion, because some of the questions are how do you curb the tax evasion in the GST system, and salient features of GST, and also what we are planning to go forward, then vision and mission of the GST in India. So I tried to be as brief and as making you understand. I will not rush, but I'll try to explain the basic fundamentals. Friends, there is a concept called threshold exemption limit. In an ideal situation, there should not be any exemption. That is the fundamental theme of GST. That's why umpteen number of exemptions under the center taxes as well as the VAT have been removed in the GST regime. However, certain blanket exemptions have to be given because it is in the interest of our MSME sector, micro, small and macro enterprises. These things are defined elsewhere. What are the MSME sector? So there is a concept called threshold, up to what amount the exemption should be given and beyond which they should be brought into the GST network. Threshold exemption is allowed on the concept called annual aggregate turnover. We'll read what it is. A person becomes liable to register only if his aggregate turnover crosses the given limits. Once the threshold limit is crossed, the person becomes eligible to, is required to register under GST and pay the taxes. Of course, there are certain specific categories who are required to register right from ₹1. What is aggregate turnover? Aggregate turnover is an amount we arrive at by taking the PAN as the basis. Throughout India, under that PAN, whatever the turnover is having, it is clubbed, not only in the state. What are the components? Components are all taxable supplies and value of all the export of goods and services, exempted supplies, and even interstate supplies of goods and services. Only one item is not required to be included here. That is, he is also required to pay tax on his raw material or whatever the services he has received. And that you need to pay, that value will not be included. That means his own productions, output, supplies, whatever it is taxable or exports or transferred to other state or exempted, all those values should be arrived at to arrive at the aggregate turnover. So this is another way of representing what are all included in this slide. What are all included we have mentioned, but what is not included is mentioned in this particular slide. That is, inward supplies value will not be taken into aggregate value. Then whatever the taxes he has paid under GST will not be taken, and whatever the cess he has paid will not be part of the aggregate value. Then there are two types of turnover. One is pertaining to a GSTN. GST means GST identification number. That means it is a GST number given to a person who is registered in the state or the union territory. Under that turnover, whatever he gets in the same principle, that is called state turnover. This is necessary to arrive at the composition levy if he's operating under composition levy and to determine how much tax he has to pay. That is one category. A second category is called aggregate turnover at the national level. So this is under a PAN number. I may have one unit here and Tamil Nadu another unit and somewhere else another unit. All the values have to be included to arrive at this aggregate turnover. Then aggregate turnover earlier was 20 lakh rupees. That means if I have turnover of 20 lakh, I need not register under the GST below that amount. But the moment I am going to cross or I am going to touch 20 lakh, I need to register and start following the procedures and paying the taxes. But there are special category of states where the amount is reduced, that is 20 lakh. But this has been subsequently revised to 40 lakh and 20 lakh. In fact, the states were given option to see whether they want to come under one of the two turnover or threshold limits. States like Telangana has chosen to stay at the 20 lakh only. They didn't want to go for 40 lakh. That is their choice. So once the turnover is determined, there is a requirement for registering under GST. The people who have already working under the various VAT or the central excise or VAT service tax regime, before 1/7/2017, they were allowed to migrate to the GST system through simple procedures. They are called migrated assessees. The second category is a lot of people have started registering under the GST and they are given the new registration. For example, earlier threshold under the central excise was 1 crore 50 lakh. Here it is 20 lakh. So that many of them who are between 20 to 1.5 crore have to take new registration on the GST. That is what they have done. But certain category of persons are not eligible for this threshold limit. There are people who are not required to register under the GST if they are dealing only exempted supplies or agriculturists, because whatever certain taxable produces from the farm or the agriculture will be collected under reverse charge mechanism from the trader. And persons who are fully engaged under the reverse charge mechanism, they also need not register because the recipient will be paying the taxes. The key features of registration are it is PAN based. In fact, in GSTIN, the PAN number is also incorporated. Recently, because of the frauds taking place, we have ensured that Aadhaar of one of the key persons, authorized persons, should be linked with it. But if I am below this 40 lakh or 20 lakh category, whether I can register under the GST, yes, that is allowed. In fact, in reality, out of 100 people who are below this threshold limit, at least 55% have registered under GST because they want to be part of the main input tax credit flow. There are advantages. In fact, at this stage, I want to mention that GST is a design which is pushing people from unorganized sector to organized sector, informal economy to formal economy. This is the beauty of GST. And registration has to be taken state-wise. And generally, there is only one registration in each state. For example, if you take BML, there are factories in Kolar, there are factories in Mysore, as well as Bangalore. Earlier, they used to register in all these places under central excise, service tax, VAT, and things like that. Today, they need to take only one registration pertaining to their head office, whatever the corporate office. But if they have BML in other state, they need to take a separate registration. It is state-wise and union territory-wise. And in the registration, it's very necessary for them to declare which is the principal place of business and which are all the additional places of business. Of course, the trade and the business are very complicated, and there are specialized wings or verticals under each companies. So they can also take separate registration for each vertical. Then this registration has been made 100% online, and it is automatically issued within 3 days unless the officers have some objection to the registration. I was mentioning about certain people who are not eligible for threshold exemption. This has been listed out here. Those who are doing interstate supply under reverse charge mechanism, e-commerce operators, then input service distributor, which I will be discussing, people who are involved in TDS and TCS. There are people called casual taxable persons, non-resident taxable persons. I will be mentioning about these concepts later on. Now, I would like to stress upon the MSME sector. Even though under the GST, there's nothing called MSME sector related provisions, but the GST scheme has taken care of MSME concerns and their difficulties. There are no tailor-made GST solutions, but we have tailored a lot of things to meet their expectations. For example, composite levy is for them, threshold limit is for them. There is something called QRMP, that means quarterly return monthly payment. Up to 5 crore, people can opt for it, and they don't have to follow the procedure, but they have to pay the taxes every month. In fact, there is a concept called reverse charge mechanism. This is also one of the measures to help the MSME sector. There are small people who cannot register and pay the taxes, follow all the procedures. For example, if there is an advocate, if he is giving consultation to a company will have to pay the tax on that on receipt of the services, and the advocate need not pay if he is a smaller person, not registered, and things like that. This is called reverse charge mechanism. In reverse charge mechanism, the recipient will pay the tax to the government. However, he will also take the amount paid as the input tax credit and use it for future output services, output goods. Only the condition is whenever he pays on the reverse charge mechanism, he has to pay in cash and take it in credit. Subsequently, he can use the credit. But most of the 99% of our transactions are under something called forward charge mechanism. That means the supplier will collect the taxes from the recipient and pay to the government. And supplier recipient will take the credit of that tax paid by the supplier. This is the normal thing, and that's the safest way of collecting the taxes. And a chain is created. Every time the supplier will collect the tax and pay, and the recipient will get the ITC. Like that, it goes on till it reaches the consumer point. In reverse charge mechanism, just keep it in mind, there are two types of reverse charge. One is under section 9.3. Here, certain items have been identified as coming under the reverse charge. So recipient will have to pay the tax on that and take the credit. This is based on identified items. There is something called goods transport agency. Smaller people, if they are not registered, that has to be paid by the recipient. Similarly, I said consultation advocates. This is that category. So still there are 7 goods and 22 services notified on this category. Whoever is receiving, they will have to pay the taxes. But this another category is there, that's called 9.4. 9.4 is very interesting provision in the GST regime. That is, you know, there are a lot of unregistered persons who are below 20 lakh or 40 lakh. They are not required to register. But there are registered companies which are bigger in stature, and they get the raw material and services from the smaller people. So the government was having a vision to incorporate all these transactions to the mainstream. So what they have done, if I procure something from the unregistered person, I need to take that into account pay the tax on that and take that as a credit, so that all the transactions, all the goods and services which are otherwise not captured by the mainstream are getting captured. But there were a lot of resistance on this particular provision. Therefore, in October 2017 itself, this provision has been suspended. It can come into force anytime, but there are provisions where certain commodities are identified and notified for the purpose of following 9(4) RCM. One of that is cement and construction industry, because it's a very evasion prone commodity. If a builder or a promoter is procuring from unregistered entity, he is required to account for it, pay the tax and take the credit. And there is another concept called composition levy. Composition levy is nothing but up to certain amount, even though they have crossed that 20 lakh or 40 lakh, but still they may have difficulties in following certain procedures of filing the returns, accounting, and all those things. So to facilitate these units, a scheme called composition levy has been introduced. Under this particular scheme, there are conditionalities up to 1.5 crore. They can operate, and what they need to do is, and they can operate up to 1.5 crore, and they need to pay the tax on their turnover, that is state turnover, at the determined percentage. It is generally 1%, except in case of restaurants, it is 5%. This is a facility for the small scale sector. Again, in special category states, which I mentioned earlier, the limit is only 75 lakh, normally off of the general, because northeastern states and some of the smaller states, they don't have so much of a big business, and they will not be able to sustain unless they tax their economic entities. There is another concept called job work, which was there earlier under the central excise, I think even under the VAT, as well as other provisions, where the big company can send certain items for further processing and getting it back. So normally job workers are smaller in stature, and they also mostly come under the MSME sector. Those provisions are continued even in the GST. Not much of the changes have been done. The principal, the main person who is sending the goods, can take the credit and as well as get back the material with 1 year, capital goods within 3 years. These were the old procedures, and that is continuing, and it's helping the small job worker to continue his business. There are concepts in GST which were there in service tax. The concepts are, one is called composite supply, another is mixed supply. Probably in future, we will have more litigations and disputes on these kind of items. Probably experts like you, when you become a chartered accountant or a cost accountant or a GST practitioner, you may have to deal with this kind of subjects. Probably this is an area where you need to do more study and may get classes done. We have experts on this. I can organize one of our officers to address your students if they are interested about composite levy, composite supply and mixed supply with concrete examples. In case of composite supply, 2 or more items are there, which are goods or services, but they are bundled naturally together and supplied in conjunction with each other, supply, and one of which is called principal supply. For example, if you want to install television, you buy the modem and things like that, television connection. Also, somebody comes and installs it. Installing is a service, whereas modem is a goods, but it will be treated as installation of TV and treated as a service. Whereas in case of mixed supply, there are 2 or more supplies, but they are not naturally bundled. They are not essential to each other. For example, when you give the gifts, you may put so many items in the gift. Diwali gift has been mentioned here. Then that will not be a composite supply. The difference between the two for the taxation purposes, in case of composite supply, whichever is the principal supply, that rate of tax will be applied for the whole value. Whereas in mixed supply, if there are 2-3 items, whichever the item has got the highest tax rate will be applied to all the whole consignment. We come across our cases like this in our audit or in our investigations. For example, one person was clearing converter with batteries and classifying as UPS and paying the taxes at the rate of 18%. But we have taken objection saying that these two are not always sold together. There are technicalities saying that they can be, they are not naturally bundled, even though it is a necessary thing to run the UPS. So there is a dispute going on this, and you should have paid 28% instead of 18%. So mixed supply and composite supply are very important, and they are the potential litigation areas in the future. We also have a concept called IDAR services. IDAR means online information database access and retrieval services. Particularly youngsters like you need to be aware, whatever the music, whatever the movies you download from certain websites, the websites may be owned by an entity abroad. So there is a separate category of taxes on these people. Some of the examples given are advertising on the internet, providing cloud services, e-books, movie, music. So we have identified them, and we have treated the recipient as the place of supply. And these entities are required to register with the GST department, even though they don't have their own office here. There are separate set of procedures are laid down. In fact, there is only one office which has been authorized to get them registered. That is in Bangalore, in my department. So throughout India, wherever they get the services, all these entities who are providing online services from abroad are required to register with this office and pay the tax. This is an area where sky is the limit. We have not fully got everybody registered, but a lot of money is likely to come from these services. But some of the services, even though they are online IT based, are not considered as IDAR, particularly if there is an intervention of a person. For example, we are all doing the webinar, but I am sitting here and I am making the presentation. So this will not come under the IDAR. IDAR is only a situation where automatically it's 100% based on the IT structure. There is also a concept called casual tax person and non-resident tax person. Just for you to be aware, there is something called casual taxable person and non-resident taxable person for you to know, so that you can read up subsequently. What is the difference between the two? Casual taxable person is the person who resides in India, citizen of India, and he has got certain business in one state but doesn't have it in other state. For example, I am dealing with shawls. If I am going to Andhra Pradesh from Karnataka, I have got a shop and registered. But when I go to Hyderabad, I will not have a shop. I want to attend a exhibition and be there for a month. And also I should sell my product there in the exhibition. So under these circumstances, he becomes a casual taxable person, and he needs to register with the GST authorities and also quantify what is the possible tax liability will come, and he has to deposit to the government, and after that he can operate. Once he has finished his exhibition, he needs to file the returns. If there are amounts to be returned to him, he can file the refund claim and take it back. In an identical situation, a foreigner may like to come to India for a short period and he wants to sell some products and do some business. Then he's called non-resident taxable person and he has to follow a similar procedure. In case of casual taxable person, it is a PAN based one. You should have the PAN, and that through the PAN only we do the verification. Whereas in NTP, that's non-resident taxable person, it is their passport number or tax identification number of their country or their unique national ID, things like that. So these two persons have to follow certain set of procedures that I have not brought out here. There is another concept called e-com operator. E-com operator is nothing but electronic commerce operator. You know, today Amazon, Flipkart, a lot of these platforms have come up, Myntra. So they are all called e-com operators, and there are separate set of very complicated provisions for them. So they need to follow certain procedure because of the technology that is also is complicated. And there are a lot of apprehensions, and we have received a lot of questions saying that through the Amazon, a lot of people are selling, but they will not be able to pay the taxes. They may be selling today and disappear tomorrow, kind of an apprehension is there. To overcome those apprehensions, the GST has made a provision called TCS, tax collection at source. That means I am an electronic operator. If I'm having certain goods sold through my platform, I will get the payment to my account on behalf of the seller. When I get this amount on behalf of the seller, I'll keep my commission portion and give the balance to the seller. So seller is supposed to register and he is supposed to file the returns and pay the taxes. So to ensure that the seller registers and pays the taxes, the e-com operator is required to charge 1% of the tax, CGST and SGST on the amounts what he is going to receive minus his own commission. He has to pay and give the balance amount to the seller of the products. So as per the TCS provisions, the e-com operator, whatever he has deducted as 1%, is required to pay to the government and file the returns. And from the government, automatically this amount will be credited to the seller's cash ledger, so that when he pays, he uses the same amount and discharges his liabilities. So what you need to understand is TCS, there is another concept called TDS in the next slide, are not actually taxes. These are for creating the audit trail where we will be able to trace the person who should have paid but he has not paid through the data analytics. Then I was mentioning about TDS, that is tax deducted at source. You see, essentially both are same, but the difference is in case of TCS, it is the electronic commerce operator who deducts 1%. But in case of TDS, it is the responsibility of the government departments, local authority, anything government related people through their transactions, they are supposed to deduct 2% as the TDS from their suppliers if the amounts are more than 2.5 lakh, so that other person will not run away without paying to the government the taxes. It works in the same way as TCS. There is another concept called input service distributor. Input service distributor was a concept which was there in service tax, which has been brought forward in the GST. Here what happens, there are a lot of multinational companies and many companies with multi-locational offices and have common services they avail. For example, on a product, I get a design and I pay for that design. And I also pay GST on that particular design. And this design could be used in my factory in Karnataka as well as in Maharashtra. In that case, what I get in the head office only one invoice and pay the GST to my supplier, service provider. So here what happens, this amount, how do I use it as an input tax credit? So IST provision allows him to raise the invoice to the respective branches elsewhere. For example, only 25% products are produced in Karnataka, he will give 25% of the ITC to Karnataka, 75% if it is in Andhra Pradesh, you will give that much to Andhra Pradesh. So, but the conditions is these GSTNs may be different, but all of them should have the same PAN number. IST should have the same PAN number and its entities also should have the PAN number, then only he can distribute the input services, whatever the he has received, to other branches. But it is not applicable to the goods. And there is an interesting part here that if I receive the invoice and if I have paid CGST and SGST, whereas my branch is located outside the state, in that case, I have to convert all that into IGST and send the invoice to them. Similarly, within the state, if you have, you can use the same thing as CGST and SGST. So this is the way you need to raise your invoices, and one has to be very careful. See, in these conversions, only one thumb rule all of you should remember: you cannot pay CGST from SGST. From SGST, you cannot pay CGST. That's the only thing. All other combinations are possible. Now, I would like to take you through the GST refunds in current regime. One of the main changes, transformational changes, are refunds. The government is of the firm belief that refund amounts are not government amounts, is the amount belong to the person who is entitled for it, so that we should not keep it unduly. That is the basic principle. So that refund mechanism has been automated so much, there are timelines fixed so that the recipient will get the refunds at the earliest possible. There are 11 types of refunds what we deal in the GST. Some are zero rated, some are non-zero rated. Yesterday there were questions on deemed exports and exports. What is zero rated? That is, you can recollect those things here. In case of zero rated, the refunds given on export of service with the payment of tax. If you would have paid the tax and exported, and that tax will be refunded. Export of goods or services without payment of tax, but he will have the accumulated input tax credit that will be calculated and returned to him. He might have supplied to the SEZ, special economic zones. That is called deemed exports, either with tax payment or without tax payment. Same principle will apply. And also to SEZ is not deemed, but is a special category. But you could have supplied to EOUs, STPI, which are deemed to be exported. So here also there are two types of refunds are available. Either supplier can get it or recipient can get it. Then there is something called non-zero rated refunds. In this case, for example, you have deposited more tax in your cash ledger. If you don't need it, you may take it back, but that has to be done through the refund applications. And there are situations where what you pay on your input may be much higher tax than what you pay on the output. For example, you make solar panels and pay only 5% of the tax, whereas you could have acquired a lot of material for that, paying 18% and 28% tax. As a result, you will accumulate the input tax credit. However, you use it on the final product. So there is a formula to calculate it and return that money to you. And refunds can arise out of your appeals and provisional assessment. And as I was saying, it could be balanced in the cash ledger. You might have paid excess tax, or you might have paid wrongly also. All those refunds can be obtained by you. The 11th one is basically if you pay wrongly, IGST instead of CGST and SGST, you have to pay IGST separately, but get the refund of CGST and SGST. This is how the refunds are paid in case of exports. Exporter, goods and services, two categories. In case of goods, if you export it on payment of IGST, automatically it is refunded to your account from the customs. In fact, this was an area facilitated by the government, saying that without human intervention, refund should flow into the accounts of the exporter. But unfortunately, we have come across large number of cases of fraud where they have fake companies have exported. You know, in case of customs also, we don't do 100% verifications. It's all based on certain risk parameters so that people can take that advantage of that loopholes, and many of them have got thousands of crores of refunds, and cases are being booked against them. In case if he executes the bond and clears, accumulated ITC will be given as refund. Similarly, in case of services, in both situations, the refunds are given by the GST authorities, not the customs authorities. This is the processing of refund by taxpayer. He has to file, verify, he will get an acknowledgement. If there are any deficiency, he will get a deficiency memo, and he has to respond to them and get his refund. This is how the department processes the refund, and there are timelines. For example, within 15 days, we have to give the provisional refund of 90%, and in any case, not more than 60 days, I can keep sitting on it. I was talking about inverted duty structure. This is the formula on that. I will share this PowerPoint. You can read and understand that. There is another facility for the taxpayer under the GST that is called advance ruling. I am a manufacturer of a certain item. Let us assume I am not sure where it goes under classification, and there may be difference in rate of tax, either 12% or 28%. Under any of those kind of circumstances, I can make an application to the advance ruling authority and get a decision. It's an adjudication process, and you can follow that subsequently. Here, what happens in case of advance ruling, it is binding on only two persons. One is the department, that is jurisdictional authority, and another is for the person who has made the application. But if the law changes or facts changes, that will not be applicable. But it is a relief for the particular person who has got the doubt and approach the authorities. Of course, here what happens, you can go further appeal to the appellate authorities, then also to the High Court and the Supreme Court, depending on the situation. That takes its own course of route. Friends, I have mentioned about the GST practitioners here. I will not going to elaborate much, but I want to mention to you that there is a concept called GST practitioners. Even though we have chartered accountants, cost accountants who are allowed to operate, there is a separate class of persons called GST practitioners, who are either the retired officers of the revenue departments at the rank of a gazetted officer, or already enrolled as the sales tax practitioner, or a graduate or a postgraduate, and if they have passed an exam to be conducted by our academy called National Academy of Indirect Taxes, Customs, National Academy of Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics. They conduct the exam, and we will be able to operate under this particular provision. In fact, those who are interested can even pick up this particular job and learn, gain experience, and they can also advise the small taxpayers. These are all the activities they are going to undertake. Practically, they will help them in filing the returns and following the rules and procedures. But in this GST practitioner provision, you should keep in mind that the final responsibility on any of the liabilities will be on the registered person, not on the GST practitioner. Now, I would like to mention to you all about the way GST is functioning. The whole GST is on the IT platform. There's nothing which happens manually. There's no point in somebody writing a letter and no returns are taken in manual format, no payments are taken in manual format, absolutely no cash transactions. So we have heavily dependent on the GST network. This is an electronic interface tax system. In fact, this is the tax authority for future. Actually, a company created by the government in 2013 itself, and there is a security for privacy of all the data. There are conditionalities attached to it. This is a unique interface for taxpayers and also for the tax authorities. This has been enabled to capture, process, and exchange of information among the stakeholders like taxpayers, state and central governments, accounting agencies, banks, and Reserve Bank of India. Now, a lot of data will also flow into the income tax department. You see, it's the diagram which is showing how the IT interface is functioning. There is a platform. On the one hand, in the front end, what we call taxpayer can operate, he can file his returns, he can register, he can make the payments, all the activities, what he needs to do, he can do it. On the back end, the department people get the data on all these taxpayers, and certain activities we need to do. That is, for example, scrutiny of returns, then auditing, all those activities we take, and also we use this data to do the data analysis. Even GSTN itself has been doing a lot of data analysis and supplying to the department officers to take action on those who are erring. This is in just what the GST network does. There is also a provision called GST Suvidha providers to help people who are not very tech savvy, that is small and rural area entrepreneurs. There are people who are having these facilities and they are authorized by the GST network. If you go to them, they will do the IT related processing of your data and upload it to the GST network, and also download it, process it for you. Interestingly, in fact, large number of small taxpayers are doing their own work on their own. That shows Indians can learn and do anything, even if it is IT related matter. What this technology is helping us is, it is helping us in achieving the ease of doing business. And there is a very minimum human intervention between taxpayer and the tax authorities. In fact, what we are looking for is 95% of the taxpayers, in fact, they should not know who are their tax authorities, and they should simply operate under the GSTN and forget about it. Only a small number of people who are trying to evade or trying to suppress their certain facts, only they should come to the notice of the authorities and they have to take action. Under the technology, there are features like, if I don't have any returns, I don't have to pay any taxes, I can send a simple SMS and the nil returns get filed. Kindly remember, for the purpose of records, the taxpayer have to say in some or the other form that I don't have any clearances, I have no liability. Then only the officers, if they detect something subsequently, they can take legal action. So this taxpayers who don't have any clearance on a particular month, they have been given the facility to send nil SMS. And there is also another provision called Know Your Supplier. And there is a e-way bill system which the goods transporter can operate. I will mention about these aspects subsequently again. There is something called compliance rating. In the GSTN, as we go along, we accumulate a lot of information so that we can provide certain basic information about a particular taxpayer, whether he is following the procedure properly, promptly paying the taxes. So a kind of rating, how he is compliant, rating will be made available in the GSTN, so that whoever is going to buy from him, they will know, okay, whether he is rule abiding or not, whether he is reliable or not. These aspects. Further, there is a provision called Know Your Supplier. You can get little more details about the person as we go along. So that is also coming from the GST network. The advantages of this Know Your Supplier and compliance rating is it improves automatically the compliance from the taxpayers. From the government point of view, it makes buyer to make an informed decision, so that people will move from unorganized to organized, and fake people numbers will be reduced. There are other facilities followed in the using the technology. We send the SMS email alert to the taxpayers so that 1 or 2 days before those, we remind them to file the returns, pay the taxes to avoid penalty and interest. These are the other facilities. E-invoice is coming up now. In fact, another interesting thing is, after implementing the e-way bill system, there is a possibility of linking with the RFID tags of the toll gates, so that the data which is coming to the toll gate can be used for monitoring the movement of the goods in a real-time basis. This will be a great help for the enforcement wings of the departments. This geotagging is another facility. The nutshell of whatever we are using the IT technologies, it is making taxpayer and officer interface almost nil. It should be as minimum as possible. And every process and procedure takes place within the IT-driven system. And even the registration is 100%, refunds are also online and 100% goes to their accounts. This is the beauty of the whole GST system. Friends, once the money is collected and we have seen, it looks very complicated. The GST system looks complicated, particularly in terms of interstate transactions, because we collect IGST, which contains state portion as well as the central portion. And there is a provision for the taxpayer to pay IGST even from SGST. So under these circumstances, somebody has to keep an account and give back that money, settle the funds to the states and the union territories and also to the center. So this mechanism is called clearing. Department of Revenue, Government of India functions like a clearing agent. It's very complicated. I'm only sensitizing you. There is a provision like this. Maybe interested person can read it up. Because GST is a destination based tax, the tax collector should go to the state or union territories where the goods and services are consumed. This is one principle. IGST is levied on interstate supply, needs to be distributed between center and state. As I was mentioning, I think yesterday, whatever the taxes collected, like IGST, will not be taken to the Consolidated Fund of India automatically. First, that has to be apportioned. Only the portion which goes to the center will be put into the Consolidated Fund of India, and other things will send to the concerned state or union territory. Till now, I have touched upon various aspects of how the GST system is working. In the questions what I have received, there were a lot of interesting questions on how the department is curbing evasion. I thought I'll make that as a separate part and explain so that it can be self-explanatory. There are inbuilt provisions and measures taken to curb both inflation and tax evasion. The first one is there is a provision called anti-profiting provisions under section 171 of the CGST Act. This provision, a similar provision was adopted by Malaysia, because most of the countries wherever they've adopted the GST, the inflation has shot up. Like suddenly the prices will go up by 2 times and 3 times. So this was one of the threat which was there for implementation of the GST, and government was very, very conscious. GST Council was very, very conscious. So they brought in these anti-profiting provisions. Many people thought that is going to be a draconian provision on the industries will be hauled up and things like that. But it was a deterrent provision right from the beginning. There are 2 aspects to the anti-profiting provisions. One is any reduction in the tax rate. As I was mentioning to you earlier, it was 28%, now it has become 18%. That proportionate amount has to be passed on to the consumer. That is the basic principle. And if I was not getting input tax credit earlier, now I am getting it, I should ensure that I pass on that benefit to the consumer. So these are the 2 things. Whenever the reduction in the tax rate or additional gain of input tax credit, both benefits should be passed on to the consumer, not just keeping with the business person. We have received a lot of complaints from the people who have bought apartments and things like that, real estate field, where the builder will start charging suddenly 12%, even though he was charging 5% earlier. So when the analysis was done, he was getting about 7% equivalent input tax credit, which was not available earlier. So that he should not have charged 12%, he should have continued to charge 5%. But under the taxation, you can't write 5%, you have to write 12%. So this 7% he should have reduced from his base price and collected 12%. So a lot of companies like Hindustan Liver, all those, they have not reduced the prices, so they have been made to pay 300, 400 crore each. In view of this anti-profiting provisions, and the due credit should be given to our taxpayers. Our inflation never went beyond what it was normally. So that credit should go to the whole business community. So what was the requirement for having an anti-profiting clause was, it is to observe inflationary trends during the initial stages of GST and control it in long-term effects, to examine whether input tax credit or lower tax credit actually result in commensurate with the reduction in prices. And it also urges the business entities to follow honest pricing policy. This is one of the method to curb the inflation, and we are fairly successful in that. There are other measures to check the compliance and also to ensure that the evasion doesn't take place. One is the auditing method. This is nothing new. Basically, even every company has got their own auditors and they do the audit. In the audit, what we do is we check the records and see whether they have declared correct turnover, taxes have been paid, refunds have been claimed, input tax has been claimed, whether they are following the procedure which is not threat to revenue. This is the basic thing. In GST, there are three types of audits. One is there is a legal mandate that the taxpayer has to get his audit report done by a professional. But there is some relaxation up to 5 crore rupees. They can file the GSTR 9 by self-certification of the records. But if your turnover is more than 5 crore, you have to file the 9 your own certified financial records. Plus, you also have to get a certificate from the chartered accountant or the chartered accountant under GSTR 9C, and that's mandatory. Thereafter, officers will select the taxpayers' units based on certain tax risk parameters, like whether they are availing more than the normal ITC, whether they are paying less tax, various, there are risk parameters. On that basis, we select the units and conduct the audit on priority. Wherever we have got the high risk parameters will be given priority. And there is a wing called audit wing separately, and the audits are being done in a routine manner. Audit is nothing but a combing operation. Whereas our investigations, intelligence-based striking are more of a surgical strike. Only on particular information we go and attack and seize and attack, get the fraudsters. There is another provision under section 66 called special audit. Special audit is for a situation where we are not able to arrive at the correct value, or we are not able to ascertain whether the input tax credit taken by him is correct or not. If it is beyond the auditor's capacity to ascertain, then we can order for special audit. These are the areas where, as you are the commerce graduates and going to be chartered accountants, you will have more opportunities to work under these fields. I was mentioning about e-way bill. This is another measure to curb the tax evasion. As you know, when the goods were moved from one place to another place without any check posts or checking, people have tried to misuse in the beginning. As a result, the Karnataka government had something called e-Sugam earlier. The same system was elaborated and used for all over India. That is called e-way bill. E-way bill is nothing but a document electronically generated in the separate NIC website, where there are conditions like above 50,000 rupees worth invoice if you are carrying, you need to write this, and there are timeline given, and officers can track it through the system where it's going and all that. So this has helped us in booking a large number of cases. For example, there are cases where the registration number is only a auto rickshaw, whereas the items carried on that are iron items, about 10 tons and things like that. And we have also come across situation where same lorry is seen both in Karnataka and Uttar Pradesh. So what it is going to show is GST is not just a tax related, it is also involving many other aspects of economic activities. Probably some of them may be using two 3 lorries with the same registration number to avoid road tax and things like that. Plus, they also have done these things for the purpose of increasing their turnover falsely. So these are certain measures which have been taken in the system itself to discourage the frauds. I would like to spend a little more time on this particular slide because there are a lot of interesting things. Each one could have become a slide, but because it is going to be unwieldy, so I have put it in a only one slide. You see, officers have been given enormous powers to summon, inspect, search, seizure, of course, even to get them arrested. The commissioners have got the power to authorize arrest, subject to certain conditions. It must be 3 crore case or 5 crore case and things like that. So this is a great tool in the hands of the officers to ensure that the evasions are detected and actions are taken. We are in the era of IT infrastructure and data analytics, application of artificial intelligence, machine reading. They are all very new normal today. So there is something called BAFA developed by the GST network. BAFA is Business Intelligence and Fraud Analysis. They do a lot of analysis and provide the information to the department. Based on that, we examine the matters. Similarly, within my own department, there is something called Directorate General of Analytics and Risk Management. We also get a lot of data, and we have booked very, very interesting cases which you may be reading in the newspapers. In fact, I did the first case of fake invoicing in 2018 November in South India. About 1,200 crore turnover was shown by one fellow keeping one laptop and creating companies in his various names. And also he had collected a lot of money, but it was very difficult to detect it, but we were able to do it. It came in the media throughout India. Earlier, there was something called bill trading. I will only give the bill so that somebody can take the benefit of it. It was not possible to bring it to the light in the olden system, but today, because of the technology and networking, we are able to detect a lot of bill trading, fake invoicing patterns. Even fake input tax credit claims have been detected and recovered. Friends, I want to tell you one more thing, and we have been talking about it. GST is not just a tax reform, and it is a game changer. It is a structural reform in the sense this is going to change the whole economy and benefit everybody who are involved in the economy. There is something called circular trading. I'm sure you may be aware of it. In case of circular trading, what happens? There are shell companies, there are main principal companies. They raise fake invoices again and again and circulate and artificially show very high turnover. For example, if their worth is only about 50 crore rupees, they increase it to 2,000 crore or 3,000 crore as if they have got so much of turnover. Banks will not be in a position to verify all those things because based on the records, chartered accountants also sign, everybody signs. So they go to the bank, get a lot of loan, and one bad day they will declare this as bankrupt, and the company can be sold only for 20-30 crore. Remaining amount will be a big loss to the bank. Our GST system is able to detect that kind of frauds, and I'm sure it is going to help the banking industry to a great extent and everybody involved in that. It also helps for the income tax department to get data on people who are evading income tax. They may be having a very good turnover in the GST, but not in income tax, or vice versa. And it also helps us in detecting fake and shell companies. You need to only imagine what is the effect of it. Effect of it is black money generation, money laundering. Money may be going to even narcotics, money may be even going to terrorism. There's no end to it. GST can help us in so many ways. I have also mentioned about the frauds in export refunds. Of course, all those things are going to be plugged. In our investigations, we have also come across several occasions where money is being encashed and diverted for political or official corruptions. This is going to be a great deterrent against the corruption. These are all the measures which have been taken for curbing the evasion. Now I will just touch upon what are the salient features of our GST. I've used the word our GST because we have to be really proud of GST in India compared to any other country. Ours is very complicated, but it has been made so simple. It is a dual GST respecting sovereign powers of both center and state. Hence, you have never heard of any conflict or any dispute between center and state till now. It is a destination-based tax following the credit invoice method, and only value is added for taxing purpose. That means government is collecting cash only on the portion where the value is added, the rest is given as credit. And the GST in India is built on goodwill, standardization, and transparency. GST stands for good, and lot many things will follow it. In fact, if you look at, for the first time in the country, everything relating to GST has been put into the public domain even before that was passed in Parliament. Model GST laws were available on the websites, and even a common man could look into it. Then GST is functioning on IT platform. It is a single national tax structure. There is a seamless flow of credit along the whole supply chain. It's an integrated administration, but people will have to feel that there is no interface. Certainly, it has eliminated cascading effect and making the exports very competitive, because you don't have to absorb the cost of CST, you don't have to absorb the cost of entry tax, octroi, any of those things. Every tax till the last paid on the exported goods can be taken back as refund. And the most important thing is the GST regime has removed the old system of check post culture. In fact, the response from the taxpayers or the traders was the moment on 1st of July 2017 GST was implemented, within 1 week they could feel it, because there was nobody to stop them at the check post. There was so much of time saved for them, so much of formality saved for them. That was the first taste of positive GST. Of course, you can analyze further. It has got impact on manufacturers, trader, and consumers, because as I've already been explaining, that from multiple taxes we have come down to practically one tax, and there are a lot of transparency, IT-based. Initially, there will be difficulties. Obviously, any change will have difficulties, and we need to manage those changes. For the government, for the country, GST helps to create one tax, one market, one nation. Somebody was asking a question why it is called one tax, whereas we have customs, state excise, income tax, and all that. I want to convey to you that it is one tax practically on the goods and services. For example, if you say Kerala is 100% illiterate, 100% literate state, it doesn't mean that everyone in Kerala is able to read and write. There will be small portion of them who are not. Same analogy has to be applied here. But again, I want to explain to you at this context, customs duty is a different taxable event and different purpose. Income tax is different. So in no country, these two are merged with the GST. GST is only for the goods and services. Certainly GST, once it is stabilized, is going to help us to increase the GDP, and it will help us to widen the tax base. In fact, once the tax base is widened, probably even the income tax rates may come down, and it formalizes most of the economic activities, and it reduces the compliance cost. It helps in capturing and creating big data for analytics. Big data is not only for finding the evaders, but also to formulate our own policies. What kind of items we have to manufacture in India, need not import from outside, what is the demand? So many, I mean, this endless kind of area. Then obviously, fraudulent economic activities will be curtailed, because it is not just tax evasion, all the fraudulent things are connected with each other. It helps us to increase the revenue. It will bring a lot of buoyancy into it. It's a really game changer, will encourage internet connectivity throughout the country. For example, it has become necessity and people have become much more familiar. It helps the banking sector and whole. What is the way forward? The way forward is still we have been working on GST. It has not fully come to the stability. There are new programs which are being planned. One is return and invoice matching is the heart of the GST system that is going to come. A new return system is going to come. We have also introduced something called e-invoicing, electronic invoicing. Electronic invoicing doesn't mean that the system is going to give the format of the invoice, but all the basic data is captured in the form of QR code, and that is verifiable. And there will be a lot of linkages with various departments for us to connect. Just I run through these slides. I told you that we are going to have a new GST returns. It is going to be normal return, Sahaj and Sugam. It's going to be very simple. It is set to be launched. The dates have not yet been announced. A lot of training to the industries has been given by our department about this new return system. The advantage of new return system is it is going to match at invoice level, at every invoice level, and allow the credit. So that is going to be a game changer very soon. And these are certain things where it has to be applied. This is how the new return is going to work. GST Annexer 1 is their liability will declare. Then what input tax credit is eligible, there will be an annexer. What cash register he has got, it will take from both of them and pay against the liability and files the returns. These are all happening simultaneously. This is about the e-invoice. E-invoice going to help the industry to great extent. Already there is a lot of positive response for e-invoice. We have already launched for the 1st of October onwards. We have launched for companies with 500 crore and above. They are all very happy. From 1st of January, 100 crore and above companies will have to adopt e-invoicing. Gradually, it will be extended to most other companies. Friends, I was mentioning how the data analysis is going to be done in the country. Because of the GST network, we capture huge amount of data that can be used by banks and RBI, that can be used by the CBDT, that is Central Board of Direct Taxes. It can be used by NSDL. MCA is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, our department. Everyone is going to use this data, and even the security agencies may require these kind of data and do their own analysis. Of course, fundamental template of GST will remain. Rewriting is only to the extent of procedures, widening the scope and moving forward. These are the only areas we are going on improvising in a regular manner. Reforms of this magnitude in a diverse and huge country like ours is bound to have little longer time to stabilize. There are questions asked saying that even after 3 years, you are not stabilized. This is the thing I want to answer them. In fact, we are building the ship while we are sailing. That is how we are feeling certain difficulties. But this year, as well as the decade, is going to be great for India in terms of GST. Before concluding, I would like to quote our former Finance Minister, Mr. Arun Jaitley. He is no more, but all his words are the great words. He said in March 2019, GST is now on the track and is in process of fast settling down. The thrust of the government is to lower the tax and widen the tax base and keep the revenue collections moving up. It is summing up the vision for future. This is a diagram for you to explain what the vision. Thanks to my daughter for drawing this diagram for me. Here, if you notice, in an ideal situation, everyone should be in the mainstream of GST. But for our own diverse reasons, because we have large number of small sectors, there are provisions where they will not be operating in the mainstream. One is composition levy, another is threshold exemptions of unregistered persons. Then now petroleum products and electricity is not brought into the GST. And there are some fixed rates without input tax credit for restaurants and real estate and things like that. These are all breaking our chain of input tax credit and the supply chain. So that's why mainstream here has become a little smaller. But as we go along and stabilize, probably we'll reach the ideal situation. As I was mentioning to you, even though threshold exemption is available, but more than half of the people who are eligible for threshold exemption have registered and started paying and operating in the mainstream, because the bigger people always look for availing the input tax credit. As a result, if I am not able to provide the invoice with the input tax credit, my supplier may not be keen on me. So it will be a market-driven exercise, and system will stabilize on its own. In the future, it is going to be much different. I've touched upon almost all the areas of GST for you to maybe pursue your studies further and understand. As I've already stated, we in the department, either from the department or from our academy, are willing to support the universities in whatever the way they want. In fact, let me discuss with our National Academy whether we can conduct certain one-week course or something like that for your faculty. But if the request can come from the universities, it will help us to formulate and conduct these programs.
Certainly.
Thank you all for patient hearing. I'm looking at the watch. It is almost 11:30. We can have discussions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation, and we welcome your suggestion to get some help from the National Academy for our students and research scholars. So we look at the chat box to see some questions.
Before that, let them keep writing, because they also need time to put the questions in the chat box. Yesterday, I've left out some questions. I've covered bulk of it. Let me run through if something requires my explanation. Non-resident tax we have mentioned. In spite of benefits under GST in the form of input tax credits, stringent measures for accountability of inward and outward supply, I think the Act failed to plug sales without bills from costly gold to cheapest items even today. This is again creating black money and an evil society. How GST measures can plug this? Even though I've tried to answer in my presentation, I want to stress upon it again. Whoever has asked this question is a good question. It shows he is very concerned about the country's economy and the bad things happening in the country. But I would like to assure him that it is the question of quantity. You see, even in the best of the situation, there will be a small amount of black money, a small amount of illegal activities. We may not be able to totally wipe it out. But what we are interested is with the able implementation of GST, as I've explained to you about the data analysis and various agencies able to get the information, certainly black money and all the civil activities are going to come down drastically. As far as the sales made by the retailers without bills, it has to be the people movement. People should resist to accept that kind of a bills, because he is not actually what you call giving you the product without the taxes. Taxes have got hidden. Only when you question him, the same amount he has to split into his value and his tax. So you can always bring certain information to our departments. We can conduct an investigation on these matters. Then I've answered in what extent GST is avoiding tax evasion. You see, what happened whenever you change from one system to another system, the unscrupulous elements will always be there to take advantage and misuse the system, the fault lines during the changeover. That we have experienced even in GST in the first 2-3 years, but things are being developed in such a way that all those loopholes are going to be curbed. I have explained GST benefit for consumers, dealers, and the government. Somebody is asking a question whether there are benefits in filing early and what happens if I file after the deadline. There is no incentive for anybody right now proposed for paying the taxes early. Certainly, there are deterrents, like if you don't pay early, you'll have to pay penalty as well as the interest, so that you are forced to file at least within the given time limits. Is GST solving the problem of declining GDP of our economy? What is GDP? Gross domestic product. Is basically if the economy can run smoothly and increase its activities, production and economic activity, automatically GDP goes up. Our GST system is going to facilitate that. So certainly it is a positive thing. What are the future programs in GST? I've explained e-invoice and a new return system, and so many other things are going to come. And somebody has asked a question, what are the uses of business taxes? This I mentioned in the beginning of yesterday's my session itself, saying that taxes are lifeline of any society to create a welfare society. Taxes are necessary for creating common infrastructure and education, everything. So taxes are very important. Kindly encourage people to pay taxes with pride. Thank you. We'll go to the chat box.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see some of the questions.
Somebody can ask question, that will be nice, because I want to hear some voice. I have been only talking.
Okay.
Sir, one Nikita is asking something. Nikita, are you there?
Yeah. Nikita, please come online.
Nikita has unmuted. Okay, no, sir.
Okay. So I request the participants to raise the question. You can unmute and ask the questions to the commissioner. Please.
You can unmute yourself and you can ask. Raj Shekhar.
Hello, I am here. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Sir,
Please.
I have a question, sir. This is about GST administration. Buoyancy in GST is a myth if there is no efficient administration. It is in this context, I would like to draw your attention towards the coordination between state tax administration and the central tax GST administration, sir. I think there is no proper coordination in it.
Okay, let me explain to you. Number one, the GST is going to function on a GST network platform. Okay, here, unlike the olden days where only when you meet, greet, and coordinate, you call it coordination, is gone. Today, what is happening is you are forced to coordinate because data is available with everybody. Particularly in Karnataka, between the commercial tax department and our department, there is an excellent coordination. In fact, even though assessees are allocated to the state, don't forget my central GST is also there. Even though some units are allocated to the center, the SGST portion pertaining to the state is also there. That means there is mutuality of interest. The way we are functioning is, for example, if there are units under the control of the state government, but all the data is available with me also. I take the top 100 or top 10 units, and if I see somebody is not paying 10 crore or 20 crore and he comes under the state authorities, immediately we'll talk to them and give the data and ask them to follow it up and collect it. And similar thing is being done by the state authorities. There is a perfect coordination between center and the state. In fact, most of officers we do interact. Not only that, there is something called GST Prime developed by the state government, and it is very useful tool.
Sir, let me
please.
Yes, yes.
How the job of collecting tax between SGST and CGST is assigned between center and state, sir?
Okay, I don't know whether you attended the class yesterday.
Because of this. Yes.
I will explain to you, no problem. What happens when in the migrated assessees, that means they were there earlier in the commercial tax and the central excise and service tax, when they migrate, we take that group of tax assessees. Those who are having more than 1.5 crore of turnover, it will be allocated 50% to state and 50% to the center. Those who are having less than 1.5 crore, 90% of those assessees are allotted to the state and 10% to the center. What you need to remember is, in the olden system, there were a lot of small dealers who are coming under the state government. So obviously we have to give them the bigger share of 90%. Secondly, comparatively, they have much more manpower than us. All these calculations have been kept in mind and the allocation has been made. But those who have registered after 1/7/2017, the computer allots 1% to state, another person to center. Like that, it goes on, it will become about 50-50%. I hope I am clear about how the allocation
Yes, definitely.
There is no satisfaction among the state tax administration side.
Please.
No. There is no satisfaction.
Okay, Rashikar, thank you. I will ask the other participants to ask questions. Any other participant? Any other participant? You have question? Sir, we go to the chat box. Some of the questions there is. Okay.
I'm searching. If you find, please see and read it out.
Okay.
Sir, some experts says that implementation of GST during economic slowdown have had negative impact on the economy. Could you please elaborate on this, sir?
Is it in the chat box?
Yes,
sir. Soumya Gupta.
Highlight padega.
One Soumya Gupta has asked the question. Some experts say that implementation of GST during economic slowdown have had a negative impact on the economy. Could you please elaborate on this?
Can you please read the question again?
Some experts say that implementation of GST during economic slowdown, means recession, have had a negative impact on the economy. Means recession itself is a negative impact. This question, I think I'm highlighting here.
No, I have understood the question. What we need to understand is exports are going to take place on various factors: international competitiveness and demand. So when it comes to GST is not going to affect, because whether they follow the service tax or the VAT system or follow the GST, they have to pay the tax, and even earlier system also they were getting the refunds. Only, in fact, we have tried to encourage them during the recession by proactively giving the refunds to them. There were certain glitches in the beginning because the system was supposed to be designed to be given under the GST network itself, but that has been by accepting the manual applications. I mean, Department on the Trade and the state government, central government have been working closely and try to resolve the problems faced by these exporters. And we have had a large number of interactions with them.
So this question.
Any other question? There is one question which says, I have a question, is GST payable on customs duty? She is absolutely correct. Yesterday also I mentioned in my presentation, in assessable value for the GST purposes, only the GST levies are not included, whereas other taxes are included. Like when you import some item, X item from abroad, first you will be levied the BCD. On that whole thing, IGST will be calculated. For example, value of the item is 100 rupees and basic customs duty is 10 rupees. It becomes 110 value for the GST purpose, but it will not be a tax on tax in real terms, because the purpose of imposing IGST on the imports is to protect our own industries inside the country so that they will have better competitiveness. Any other questions?
No other questions. So they are asking us to share the PPT. We'll share the PPT. No other questions.
Yeah.
One moment.
So since there are no questions from the participants, we will conclude. I think it was an excellent session yesterday and today. And all the participants and Vice Chancellor and Registrar were very happy because involving the government, especially at the highest level, Commissioner of Income Taxes and GST with a lot of experience. It was excellent session, and we shared the PPT to all the participants. And you invited us to write a letter to the National Academy for involving the National Academy for conducting some short-term programs to our students. We definitely, our university will take up this matter. And I am grateful to you. I extend thanks on behalf of the University of Mysore for giving excellent lecture to our students and teachers. Thank you, one and all. And also extend my thanks to faculty members of affiliated colleges, more than 250 affiliated colleges, and around 45 colleges with MCOM courses, research scholars, and students have actively participated in this seminar. I extend wholehearted thanks to all of them. Thank you, sir. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Professor.
Just sir, finally, I ask a question. One question to you.
Please.
Many of our students are eager to write for civil service examination. You please give a final word for our students. Any advice for our students to prepare for civil service examination? Just one hint for them.
In fact, I came to the university 2 years back and I did address a large number of students. This is an excellent idea. What I want to convey to the students is there are a lot of opportunities, not only civil services. So first they have to find what is their passion and what they want to become. That should be the first identification. When it comes to civil services examination, my one advice is, I have also done MSc and written the exam. But the people who do the PG course or the MSc have a disadvantage in writing these exams. The disadvantage is we have the tendency to go deeper in a particular subject. As a result, we don't answer all the questions at a particular level. What they say for the civil services is, it is to the level of the BSc honors or BA honors. Okay, just above the degree and just below the PG. But most of our students get into the subject like a researcher. That will not help you to score the marks. That's one advice. Second thing is, when you appear for this civil service exam, you have to keep it in mind that you need to score in every question and every paper. It is the overall scoring what is important. It's not scoring 100 in one particular paper and 20 in another paper. That is another precaution one has to take. And yes, I was giving the presentation yesterday and today. In fact, I was remembering civil service exam only. I have covered the topic which is to be studied for about 3-4 months, but in about 2 days, I would have taken about 3 hours totally. So what I have done in the whole presentation yesterday and today is, I have spoken about basics of each item, but I have touched everything relating to GST. This is the way you need to prepare for the civil service examination. You should know everything minimum required, and you should be able to answer what is required in the question paper. That is the only advice I want to give you. The rest is available in many places, and anybody is interested, we can always advise them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your tips. I am very grateful to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.